Hello creators and welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna be talking about indecision. I was struggling to really make this video, and I'm gonna be honest with you, even though I've been filming these videos weekly for about 4 months, it's still kind of difficult for me to sit down and pump it all out, and I get this crazy anxiety right before I film. And I often don't really know what to talk about because, my channel is still relatively young. I don't have a ton of subscribers. So I don't really know what performs well, what you guys want to see, and I'm still kind of figuring out my style. But I decided today that I'm gonna let go of all of that. I'm not gonna worry about that. What I'm gonna do instead, I'm just gonna have fun with it. I'm gonna show up and I'm going to talk to you guys about what I struggle with, what my clients struggle with, so that we can learn from each other's struggles, so we can learn from each other's successes in order to help us elevate in our own lives. So if you are new here, I'm Vanessa. I co-own a branding and web design studio called Zen, and I make content about tangible and intangible ways to grow your business. So, speaking of indecision, I really wanted to talk about this topic because I recently had a call with a client, and in the call we were going over her website, and we're pretty much done her website. We're done her branding. Everything is almost ready to launch, and to my surprise, she kind of did a little bit of a 180 on everything that we've been working on her website. She loves her branding, but she was just saying that her website, she now came up with a new business and she wanted to launch that business, basically erasing all the work that we have put into her website and everything we've created so far. And her reasons for wanting to do this switch last minute and kind of have us focus on something else was because she felt like the website that we have created, it's maybe a little bit too spiritual and it doesn't really match with her current business. And when she said that, I was very surprised because, we don't just pump out a website. We don't just talk to a client, they tell us what they want, and then we kind of do it. We never do that. In our studio, we really take the time to understand their purpose, to understand their vision, and to understand where they're going with their business, right? Where they are now, who their audience is, where do they hope to go, and kind of how can we transform the business that they have now into the business that they're dreaming to have. In order to arrive at that outcome, we first of all, we have many meetings. We have an initial meeting, we have a second onboarding meeting, we have 2 very thorough questionnaires that we make them complete, and after that we have a strategy session. So at multiple touch points, we reiterate what the mission is, what the goal of the brand is, how we're gonna get there, exactly what our role is into bringing that vision to reality. So imagine my surprise when we're pretty much at the last feedback meeting and the client turns to us and she says that, oh, actually, I was looking at it and I'm thinking that maybe this is too much and maybe we should just separate the two and have my corporate website be something and then my spiritual website be something else. I was completely floored when she said that. I mean, I listened to her. I wanted her to really explain where she was coming from. I wanted to understand why she thought this. And throughout us uncovering what was going on, I realized, and she mentioned that she thinks that, now her corporate website, because she offers corporate services, but she wanted to infuse a little bit more spirituality in her services. So she wanted to pivot from this. She's in an industry that's relatively straightforward. It doesn't really have a lot of spirituality infused in it. It doesn't really go below the surface, right? So it's kind of like what you see is what you get. And, bringing spirituality in this, I thought initially when she was telling us about the project, I thought it was such a good idea, such a unique angle. And I thought she was perfectly positioned to do this. So now, after we created the logo and we created the website, now she was faced with this reality. And what I realized is that to her, it felt like it was too much. She was getting scared to really step into this new version of herself, and she was scared of letting go of her preconceived ideas of how her particular business is generally represented in the market. And when we do share our designs with our clients, obviously we give them a couple of days to think about it, we let them review it, and oftentimes what they'll do is that they'll take it to their loved ones, they'll take it to their colleagues, they'll take it to their friends, and they'll ask, hey, like, what do you think about this project? Or like, what do you think about this design? And of course they should do that. Obviously, we want them to get feedback, but what's important about feedback is that you have to take it with a grain of salt, and you have to think about who the feedback is coming from. Because if it's coming from someone that is not within your target audience, if it's coming from someone that doesn't understand your business model, or they don't understand what you're trying to do with the business, then it's kind of expected that they don't resonate with the design, right? And in our own business, or the businesses that we create for our clients, we are very niche specific. Obviously, we help women create wellness businesses, but the wellness market is exploding right now. There's just so many different facets to this wellness world, and we strongly encourage our clients to stand authentically within their purpose and to create their own niche. I'm a strong believer that what we have to offer as individuals can be enough. You don't have to be like everyone else. Just because something is popular or trending and it's working for someone else, that doesn't mean that you have to copy what that person is doing and do it yourself. No, what I think is that there is enough space for all of us, and all of us have a unique perspective, and all of us only need to help a handful of people in order to have a sustainable business, in order to make a good paycheck and have peace of mind and continue to create and continue to thrive. We don't need the whole world to adhere to what we have to offer. We don't need the whole world to buy our services and our products. And because of that, I really believe in the power of the niche. It works so well because you are able to talk to a specific customer, and you are able to talk to a specific person, and you can really understand that specific client type. Instead of trying to serve everybody, it's better to just understand the needs of a single individual and to serve that individual to the best of your abilities. At least that is my philosophy, and I've worked with many women that have wellness niches and that are incredibly successful in what they do. So I really do stand by it. And when it came to this client, what I've noticed is that in the beginning, she was all for standing in her true identity, and she was all for cultivating this niche and growing this niche for herself. But then when the product was finished, or when the website was finished and she was almost close to stepping into that energy, all of a sudden she became extremely afraid, right? Because what is indecision if not fear? All of a sudden, she was rethinking everything. She wasn't sure if this is really what she should do. And it just became like this heavy burden that maybe she's not doing the right thing. And honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. Just from knowing her and from knowing her mission, from knowing exactly what she's looking to create, her niche was perfect. I know that she's going to have a ton of success in it as long as she's ready to step up to the plate and embody this version and embody this vision. She is going to do great. I know that there's people out there that are looking for specifically her services, and it doesn't matter that the rest of her industry is not doing it like that. If anything, it's even more powerful, because now when a client is looking for that specific service, you are going to stand out against a crowd of sameness, right? I know that when we first started our studio and we decided to focus solely on women and wellness, a lot of naysayers were like, you can get so much more business if you work with everybody, and why only women, and why only wellness businesses? Why can't you just do websites for everybody? Your skills can translate into any and whatever website. And that is true, yes, but to us, it was really important to work with this audience because, first of all, we ourselves had an interest in wellness, we had an interest in spirituality, so we wanted to work with like-minded people, and then we wanted to work with women specifically, just because as women ourselves, we understand the struggles of creating a business, of carving an audience, and of showing up in that business as yourself day in and day out. And that was really important to us. So I really trusted in this niche that we picked, And what happened is that a lot of the women that were finding our website or they were finding us on Instagram or on Pinterest, every single time I talked to them, I got on a call with them, they would say, I picked you, or like, I wanted to talk to you because I came across your website and I saw that you work specifically with women in wellness. So instead of just working with a whatever designer that does anyone's website, that does anyone's branding, they picked us because they knew that we would understand where they are coming from. And that to me just illustrated how powerful working within a niche really is. And that would be the exact same situation for the client that I have right now. Once she is able to step into her purpose and she's able to rise up to this new image that she has created for herself and her business, people are going to come to her specifically because she is different from the rest. But the reason why this showed up for her, it was because of indecision, right? She almost made the decision. She was almost committed, but then when it was time to take that final step, she had to pause for a second and she wanted reassurance that what she is doing is really valuable. Well, in fact, she didn't want reassurance. She wanted to throw the whole thing down the drain and start anew, which would have been such a shame if I would have agreed and if I didn't recognize it for what it is, which is fear showing up as indecision. And if we were just one of those studios that just does whatever the client wants, and we were one of those studios that just doesn't really care and it doesn't really matter what happens to the client as long as we get paid. But thankfully, we are not one of those studios. So instead, I listened to her and I wanted to see where she was coming from. And I recognized that fear right away. And I encouraged her to think a little bit more deeply about this. And I shared to her my perspective of why she should embody this energy and why she does need to stand out and doesn't need to blend, and how powerful standing on your own 2 feet and being apart from the rest is going to be in the long run. And thankfully, this client was very understanding. We had many talks before about limiting beliefs and about these self-sabotaging patterns that show up in our lives. So she was understanding and she immediately understood where I was coming from, and she immediately admitted that perhaps it is fear. We came to an agreement where we would meet in the middle. We will tweak the website a little bit so that it's not extremely spiritual, but we're also not going to take away that essence entirely. And what I wanted to reassure her is also that, businesses are ever evolving and we as people are ever evolving. So it's better to just put something out there right now and get started on the journey instead of continuously tweaking something, instead of thinking how else can you do it better or how else can you make it perfect. And it made me think about this pattern of indecision. Indecision is one of those sneaky little habits that keeps you stuck without you even realizing it. I've seen it so many times, especially with my clients, just like the one that I just told you. They'll get right to the edge of finishing a project and suddenly everything slows down. They start second guessing their decisions, they're changing things that were already approved, or they're finding reasons to delay that final step. And at first glance, you may look at this and you may think it's perfectionism or wanting to get it right. But when you dig a little deeper, you'll see that it's actually fear. Fear of being seen, fear of being judged, fear of putting your work out into the world and not knowing how it will be perceived or if it will be accepted. And if we're being honest, it's very normal to feel this way, especially when you're doing something new, when you're doing something that's pushing you outside of your comfort zone. If you've been doing something one way for the last 10 years and now you want to pivot, you may want to pivot, but your habit patterns, they keep you stuck in what you have already done. Your mind goes on and on and on and it's saying, if it's worked so far, why should we change it? Because when you're putting something out there, whether it's a new product or a service or even just showing up online, you're taking a risk. You're stepping into the unknown, and that can truly be terrifying. But what you have to understand is that indecision doesn't actually protect you from fear. It just delays it. And don't be mistaken, indecision is still a decision. It's a choice to stay exactly where you are, in the same situations, dealing with the same frustrations. And the cost of that is massive. It wastes your time and it holds you back from the growth that you're actually capable of achieving. And that's exactly what was happening to my client. She reached out to us because she wanted to pivot, she wanted something new, she wanted to align her business with the transformation and the growth that she has experienced. But then when we presented her with that something new, all of the sudden it felt like it was too much and that she wasn't capable of doing it. She wasn't capable of following through, or at least that's what she was feeling. But I've had other clients as well who are so close to launching their websites. We spent months working on it, everything was ready to go, but then when it came time to actually hit publish, they started rethinking their branding, tweaking their messaging, and basically stalling. And the crazy part is, just like in the example I gave you at the beginning of the video, those clients deep down know what they're doing. And if you fall victim to this habit, you too, deep down, you know what you're doing. You're sabotaging your own success. And not because you don't want it, but because you are too afraid of what comes next. But you know what? That fear doesn't go away by waiting. The thing with fear is that the only way to move past it is through it. Taking action is the only antidote to indecision. Because when you take a step forward, even if it's a small one, you create momentum, and that momentum leads to clarity and growth. Now, I don't want you to go ahead and blame fear for everything, because fear is not your enemy. It's actually a sign that you are stepping into something big. If you're feeling it, it means that you're finally moving past your comfort zone, and outside of your comfort zone is where the magic truly happens. Try to look at fear and remember that it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means that you're on the edge of something amazing. So if you're sitting in indecision right now, I want you to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen if you take the leap? And more importantly, what's the best that could happen? What could be waiting for you on the other side of that fear? Trust yourself to take that next step, even if it's a small one. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need everything to be perfect. You just need to start. Because when you do, you realize that your fear is not as big as it seems, and it's just a signal that you're growing. Remember that the only way out is through. So stop overthinking, take the leap, and show up for yourself. You're ready, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. And I want you to remember that there is no mistake so big that you can't pivot afterwards. You can always tweak your website, you can always tweak your brand message, you can always tweak your services. It doesn't matter. Truth is, we're all doing it for the first time. You just have to try and see how it feels. But don't let yourself be afraid and be stuck in indecision and not taking action. You can look at what others are doing, you can compare yourself all day long, but unless you try it for yourself, you will never know if that strategy works for you as well. And if you're creating something completely new, well, you won't know unless you try, right? And especially in business, the worst thing that could happen is that you'll need to pivot again. But at least you tried. Remember that the time will pass anyway, so you might as well do what you want, go after your dreams, and rid yourself of the fear of indecision. But what about you? Do you struggle with indecision? Is there something that you're sitting on and you don't really know which way to go? Let me know in the comments below. Please subscribe and like this video if you found it helpful. It lets me know that you're enjoying this type of content so that I can make more videos like this. I'm Vanessa from Zen, a web design and branding studio where we help you tap into your CEO energy and finally live the life of your dreams. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.